We're continuing in the discussion and presentation, I suppose you could call it, either one, on the Beatitudes and how profound they are in the lessons that Jesus embodied as well as what he taught. In Matthew 5, verse 1, when Jesus saw his ministry drawing huge crowds, he climbed a hillside, and those who were apprenticed to him, the committed, climbed with him. Arriving at a quiet place, he sat down and taught his climbing companions. And this is what he said: "You're blessed when you're content with just who you are. No more, no less. That's the moment you find yourselves proud owners of everything that can't be bought." And this is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be unto God. Myra informed me this morning that our dog had my sermon on the floor and was about to shred it. I don't know if he saw that it was going to be good to eat it, or he thought that it was bad and he needed to dispose of it. Either way, here it goes. But Robert Schuller once told a story relayed to him by his Catholic friend, Father Joseph Murphy. There were some nuns who attended a baseball game, and behind the nuns sat some rude, loudmouth anti-Catholics. And one said very loud, for the benefit of the nuns, "Let's go to Texas. I hear there aren't many Catholics there." His companions laughed and replied, "Oh yes, no, let's go to Oklahoma. There are even fewer Catholics there." And the first one said, No, listen, I got a better idea. Let's go to Alaska. There are almost no Catholics there." And at that point, one of the nuns had taken all she could take, and she turned around and she said, "Well, why don't you fellows just go live with the devil?" And she didn't exactly use those terms, if you get understanding. So she said, "Why don't you just go live with the devil, because there aren't any Catholics there." You know, can you imagine the shock of those brutes when the nun turned around and spoke so directly in such a fashion to them? Who would expect the meek and mild nuns to carry on in a response like that? You know, many have interpreted down through the years that this means that if we are meek, someone who quietly accepts insults and injustice with unlimited forbearance. Consequently, meekness is a virtue very few pursue. There's a misconception concerning the virtue of meekness. For many, meekness is considered weakness. It's a liability, not an asset. It's hard to convince someone that to be meek is really to be happy. How can you congratulate a person for being meek? Such a virtue in this rough and tumble world is looked upon with scorn and contempt. And we prefer to be like the little boy whose mother kept calling him my little angel, my little lamb. And finally he said, "Mother, I don't want to be your little lamb. I want to be your little tiger." You know, and it's something very shocking to hear Jesus say that the world belongs to the meek. Perhaps it would help us understand his logic by taking a quick look at the meaning of the word meek. In the French version of the New Testament, the word for meek is debonair. Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Debonair. And I like that word because it cancels out all the false sadness or weakness that's often been linked to be meek. Webster's Dictionary defines debonair as a person who is suave, urbane, charming, and sophisticated. And to be debonair is quite a compliment. It gives a sophisticated dimension to a virtue that has been given a bum rap. And with this in mind, Jesus is saying, congratulations to the debonair, for the world belongs to you. This third beatitude is congratulating those who possess this virtue that unlocks the mystery of authentic happiness. And let's look for a brief moment at the meaning of the word debonair or meek. You know, to be meek means, first of all, power under control. Power under control. Meekness is not weakness, nor is it milquetoast timidity. My heart goes out to those who live their lives like whipped dogs. And you've seen them, haven't you? They're stooped and shy, reluctant and fearful. Dr. David Seaman's writes of such a man. Ben was his name. And Dr. Seaman says Ben was one of the most timid souls I've ever counseled. I couldn't even hear him. What did you say, Ben? Even though he was sitting just a mere 10 or 12 feet away from me, I couldn't hear him. I'd have to say to him, speak up, Ben. Speak a little louder. He was so afraid to be a burden to people. It could make a person uncomfortable just to be around him. You might look to see if he was wearing a sandwich board that read, "Excuse me for living." Have you ever heard of the dependent order of really meek and timid souls? Let me repeat that again, because you really want to get the meaning of it by listening and putting the first letters of each word together. And it spells something. To be meek meant to be a part of the dependent order of really meek and timid souls. What'd you come up with? I know, it's early. Doormats. Doormats. That's what they believe they are. The doormats have an official insignia, a yellow caution light, and their motto is, "The meek shall inherit the earth," if that's okay with everybody. Upton Dickinson, who wrote a pamphlet called Cower Power, founded the society. Well, Ben could have been a charter member of the Doormats. You see, meek has often meant that in a lot of people's minds, that if you're meek, that means the world will just run right over you, as if you were a doormat. Well, that's not true. Not according to the word here and what it means. Because to be debonair doesn't make you a doormat. The meek are actually mighty because not only are you able to not be always on the defensive, but you're able to live with power under control. That's the real strong people in our world. In fact, to put it another way, it's the gentleness of the strong. John Dresker tells us that meek was used by the Greeks to describe an animal that has been trained so that it was teachable and leadable. Now, picture this in your mind. You've got a wild bucking bronco, and they're trying to break that horse so that it can be useful, it can be ridden. It doesn't do away with that horse's nature. What it does is it takes that nature and packages it and channels it in such a way that it becomes powerful. That's what it means to be meek. John Kenton helps us understand the powerful nature of the meek with what is not so much a definition as a description. Meekness is a proof of the true greatness within and the true nobility without. It proceeds from a heart too great to be moved by little insults, too lofty to be ruffled by a mere passing breeze, a faith too well guarded to be disturbed by any little storm. It's too lofty to be mean and too strong to be frightened. It exhibits the very opposite of a small nature, which cherishes anger, malice, vengeance. It bears with patience insults and opposition, leading the vindication of its claim to him who judges righteously. The meek are mighty because they have learned to discipline